Okay, Chair, we're live.
Good morning, councillors, officers, members of the public and press. Welcome to this meeting of Licensing Subcommittee. This meeting is a remote meeting and being live streamed on the website and recorded. I will now hand you over to Joe Stubbs from Democratic Services.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Licensing Subcommittee. I'm just going to start the meeting with a quick roll call just so we can check who's here today. We have, can I just ask members if they could, confirm they can see and hear everything and that they have all the paperwork, please. Right, I'll start with Councillor Buchan.
Yes, to all.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buchan. Councillor Carl Richardson.
Yes, I've got everything, thank you.
Good morning, Councillor Smith.
I've got everything, thank you.
I believe we also have Councillor Tony Richardson with us as an observer. Is that correct? Are you with us, Councillor?
Yeah, present.
Thank you very much. And I think that's everything from me. I'll just hand back to you, Chair.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Moving on to item 1, have we got any apologies for absence?
We have no apologies for absence, Chair.
Thank you very much. Have we got any members need to declare an interest? No? Moving on, item 3 for decision. Application for to vary premises licences for Morrisons. I'll pass you over to Ian Harrison to start off.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning all. Yes, the purpose of this morning's meeting is to consider an application for the variation of the premises licence in respect of Morrisons Supermarket, Clarence Road, Hartlepool. The applicant is WM Morrison Supermarkets plc. A copy of the existing licence detailing the current licensed activities is attached to the report as Appendix 1, and a copy of the application to vary the licence is attached to the papers as Appendix 2. In summary, the applicant has applied for Morrison Supermarket to become a 24-hour store, with the sale of alcohol off sales and the provision of hot food being available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. By means of background, the application has been advertised in the prescribed manner and 2 representations have been received. One from the Hartlepool Licensees Association, which is being represented today by the Chair, Darab Razai, and one from Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. As relevant representations have been received, a hearing must be held for members to consider the application. Members of the subcommittee are reminded that paragraph 4.25 of Hartlepool Borough Council's current statement of licensing policy states the following in relation to licensing hours. The licensing authority does not accept that longer opening hours have been a benefit to Hartlepool, but rather that they place an undue and unnecessary strain on the local transport infrastructure, accident and emergency services, and law enforcement agencies, and create a nuisance for those residents who are affected by revellers returning home during the early hours. Shops, stores and supermarkets will in general be licensed to provide sales of alcohol for consumption off the premises at any time when the retail outlet is open for shopping, but licenses for before 9 AM or after 10 PM in residential areas will generally be refused. In addition, licence applications for the supply of alcohol for consumption on the premises for before 9 AM or after 11:30 PM in residential areas will generally be refused. Having regard to the representations received, members may take any of the following steps for the promotion of the licensing objectives: to approve the application in its entirety, to approve the application in part with or without the addition of further conditions, or to reject the whole or part of the application. The committee is reminded that the licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Members are reminded that they must only consider those aspects of the licence application that are relevant to the representations received. And the recommendation, Chair, is that members consider the representations made by the applicant and the objectors and determine what aspects, if any, of the application should be granted, and if appropriate, what conditions, if any, should be attached. Thank you, Chair. I can answer any questions that members may have.
Your mic is on the mute. We can't hear.
Sorry. Any questions from members for Ian?
Yeah.
Carl?
Could I just ask, what is the present situation as regards the likes of Tesco's and Asda?
Yes, they have what you might call a 24-hour license already. They've both had 24-hour licenses for, I think, since they first opened. They're not necessarily using them at the moment because of COVID, but the license does allow the sale of alcohol 24 hours a day, subject to Sunday trading rules restricting trading on Sundays.
Right, okay.
Any more questions for Ian? Bob?
Yes, Ian. And there are no residential properties near either Asda or Tesco, are they, unlike Morrison's?
I don't want to comment on whether Morrison's falls within a residential area or not, but I think it is fair to say that Tesco and Asda are not in residential areas.
Thank you.
Are we all happy? We've asked the questions that we need to.
Yeah.
Can I now bring in the applicant, Richard Taylor?
Morning, Chair.
Morning.
Would you like me to make my submissions on behalf of Morrison's?
Please.
Lovely. Well, I have with me Kelly Nichols, who is Morrison's National Licensing Manager. He'll be able to answer any questions that you've got. But what I'll do, if I may, is I'll deal with this application in 3 parts. Number 1, the applicant and the reasons for the application. Number 2, what we do and will do to promote the licensing objectives. And number 3, I'll just comment on some issues raised in the representations. But before I do any of that, what I'd need to do is to put this application into context. This application is all about flexibility. And if you write one word of my submissions down, I'd ask that that word be flexibility. What we're seeking is exactly the same flexibility that's enjoyed by Asda, which is just over the railway line from us, and by Tesco, which is, of course, just down the road. So we're seeking the same flexibility as they do. As things stand, we trade 7 till 10. But we have a license until midnight, so we have a little bit of flexibility. What we'd like to do is have a little bit more, exactly the same as our competitors. And this has come about, members of the committee, this has been focused really by the current situation. We submitted these applications back in September, and at that stage, we believed, and we still believe, that there will be demand from shoppers to shop when they feel most comfortable, and that may well be later into the evening. And on the basis that the store is manned 24 hours anyway, we'd like to be able to open it to allow shoppers to shop when they feel most comfortable, and basically to give ourselves the same flexibility as everybody else. So as you've heard from Ian, the application was properly made. There are no representations from any of the responsible authorities, and we'll come back to that. And of course, you know that the responsible authorities are considered experts in their particular field. We've liaised with the police. We've agreed a package of conditions with the police, and I'll come to those later. And of course, the final 2 bits of backdrop are the Home Office guidance on this and your policy. Well, the Home Office guidance is very, very clear. Supermarkets should normally be free to sell alcohol for consumption off the premises at any time the shop's open for shopping, unless there are good reasons for restricting those hours. And your policy is clear. You wouldn't generally grant licenses in a residential area. Well, you know, I'm looking at a map in front of me. One side, we've got a main road and a railway line, and then Asda. To the north of us, we have the football ground, which from memory, I think is Victoria Park. Is that right? Thank you. And then the pub. Then we come down, we have Ream Terrace. There are 10 houses which abut our back wall. And then we come down onto, I think it's Museum Road. And again, that's not. We are close to some residential housing. Whether or not that's a residential area is a matter entirely for you. But we'll come to that because, of course, I would submit, and I will submit at the end, that if this was slap bang in the middle of a residential area, we'd have more than one representation from a household. Anyway, that's the backdrop against which I'm going to make the application. So the applicant is this. It's Morrisons. We have 500 stores and about 100 petrol filling stations with premises licenses. The company guards those licenses very, very carefully. And in all of the years, it's now 16 years since Licensing Act 2003 has been in force, the company has never faced review proceedings under Licensing Act 2003. It's never received any criminal proceedings emanating out of Licensing Act 2003. It is a wholly responsible operator. It operates its shops without any difficulty whatsoever. And this application is number about 125 of 130 of these that we made. So, Morrisons, we are seeking to vary the hours of off-sale to 000 to 2400, that's 24-hour license, the flexibility, and to permit late night refreshment from 2300 to 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, as I mentioned in my email to the licensing authority, as I submitted the application, I need to be very, very clear. We're not seeking to operate as a takeaway or anything like that. The cafe won't be open through the night, but we do sell some hot products. We sell coffee, a hot product. If we sell coffee after 11 o'clock, we need to be covered for late night refreshments. We sell rotisserie chickens. We sell bakery products. Now, if they're available and they're warm after 11 o'clock, or between 11 o'clock and 5 o'clock, we need to be covered for late night refreshment. But I want to be very, very clear that we're not opening the cafe or seeking to do anything like that. So that is what we're asking for. Moving to the next heading, which is how we promote the licensing objectives and what we do already, or what we're going to do. We have a full digital CCTV system. We train all our staff, on their responsibilities and obligations. That training is regularly refreshed. We operate Challenge 25. We operate with till prompts, so whenever an age-restricted product is scanned, the cashier is required to go through a process to ensure that he or she implements their training with regards to implementing the Challenge 25 policy. We have an electronics refusals log. We operate independent test purchasing, where we send people into the store who are under 25 but over 18 to check that this training is implemented. And the effect of all that at the moment is that this store operates without any difficulty whatsoever, and we've been back through complaints records. There are no complaints that we've received about it at all. So that's what we do up until midnight. In the event that that the application is granted and we operate after midnight for alcohol sales, we will employ additional security. Now, that's not something that anybody is requiring us to do, but we acknowledge that we will security may well be appropriate after midnight. And again, just like our competitors, we will employ security guards when the store is open for alcohol sales after midnight. And finally, you'll have seen, I hope, in the email that I sent, the enhanced conditions that we have agreed with the police. Those conditions, just very, very briefly, they are more prescriptive with regards to the CCTV and the training and the provision of the information to the police if it's ever needed. So there we are. So that's what we do. Moving then to the issues raised in the representations, we've got Mr. Rezai, the chairman of the Hartlepool Licensees Association, and his representation is at Appendix 4. Now, as far as Mr. Rezai is concerned, he is, of course, more than entitled to object, but he says, doesn't he, that the providing drink after hours in volume could definitely have consequences for as far as the licensing objectives are concerned. And he starts with crime and disorder. Well, pausing there and looking at the position of the police. The position is that the police do not object. The police are the experts in matters of crime and disorder, and as far as the guidance is concerned, should be your principal source of advice on matters of crime and disorder, rather than Mr. Rezai, who is objecting on behalf of the Licensees Association. We don't criticise him for doing that, but you're going to have to weigh his evidence against the position of the police. And similarly with public nuisance. Environmental health, no issues whatsoever. And these are responsible authorities who are the experts who would be telling you if they foresaw a problem. Now, the position is the only people that foresee a problem are those who may think that they have a vested interest in preventing competitors from selling alcohol. Public safety and protection, nobody's objecting on behalf of them other than Mr. Rezai and the Licensees Association. And similarly, we've heard nothing from child safeguarding. And the reason for that is that there is absolutely no problem operating these premises between 6 and midnight as we do at the moment. And so how does Mr. Rezai extrapolate the fact that there will definitely, certainly, he says, be consequences if we operate the flexibility that we're asking for? He also refers to COVID-19 and the NHS. We will continue to do exactly what we are told by the government. If we are told we can open, we will. If we're told not to, we won't. Simple as that. So, Mr. and Mrs. Taylor, I have we have Mrs. Taylor here. She is concerned about the public safety and the staff. Well, I've already said if we're open after midnight, we will have additional security. There is nothing more important to us than the safety of those that work for us and those that are in our store. And she says she's witnessed groups of people drunk in the street. But you will have seen from the letter of representation that there is absolutely no suggestion that any of this has emanated from Morrison's. So members of the committee, there is the application. I started by asking you to write one word, and that's flexibility, and that's what this is all about. So members of the committee, those are the submissions on behalf of Morrison's. We have Mrs. Nichols with us if you've got any questions about operation, but unless I can help you any further, I'll turn my microphone off. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Open it up to members to ask questions. Carl.
Yes, you were saying that on a night time it's going to be manned. Are you saying that it's going to be men only doing the security work and looking after the customers? The second thing is, when you talk about the police being experts, I would have thought that the residents themselves are experts, in actual fact.
Well, first things first, I used manned as in there will be security employed. Security staff at Morrison's are male, are female. Yes, it's not a male dominated, and I apologise if that was the impression I gave or if there was any offence caused by that. As far as who are the experts are concerned, I'm quoting from the Home Office guidance.
Yes.
The Home Office itself, paragraph 2.1 of the section 182 guidance says the police should be the licensing committee's main source of advice on matters of crime and disorder. Paragraph 9.12 of that same guidance, the Home Office says each responsible authority will be an expert in their respective field, and it is likely that the responsible authority will be the licensing authority's main source of advice in relation to a particular licensing objective. So all I was trying to say was that the experts, those that we're told that the experts, do not object. I accept entirely that those who are living in the area are very, very well placed to give evidence with regards to any difficulties that they face.
Thank you. Bob?
I'm concerned that the location of Morrison's is very close to licensed premises already, and it would be quite easy for people to come up from Church Street or elsewhere and collect alcohol and drink it on the streets on the way home, whereas Asda and Tesco are well out of the way.
Well, I can't change your opinion. I mean, it's a matter of fact and geography where Morrison's is. There are pubs, of course, close to the other premises, but maybe more Tesco's than Asda. But you know, wherever people are walking to, they may well walk past Morrison's or Tesco. Tesco, looking at the map, is you've got the main road and then you're straight into a housing estate. It really isn't very far at all. And as far as Morrison's is concerned, well, but for those 10 properties that abut the back wall, we are just as close as Tesco are to residential properties. I accept we're closer into the town centre.
Could I ask, your security that you're adding on to Morrison's, if you do get the licence, would they actually deal with the issues in store? Would they contact the police as they do normally? Hartlepool has quite a low number of officers on duty each time, and I know that security guards are only allowed to deal with something to a certain extent, and then would call the police to be able to back them up or deal with the situation. So would that not then cause an extra strain on the local officers?
Well, the security will operate in exactly the way it does at the moment, and yes, of course, if the police needs to be called, then the police would be called. That's exactly the same as happens in Asda or indeed in Tesco's. The point here is, of course, the police don't foresee a problem and aren't saying that this would be a stretch on the resources if we were afforded the flexibility that we're asking for.
At what stage do the security guards called out? What situation could you see where security guards would call the police to deal with the situation?
Well, I think that's probably a question best addressed to Mrs. Nichols, who can answer from a procedural and a company point of view. Mrs. Nichols, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was just going to sort of mention at that point, our experience when trading 24 hours is that we don't have the issues or the concerns addressed by members of the public. As Richard said, Mr. Taylor said, we protect our licences very, very closely. Any issues that are not happening at store, I automatically help and support those stores to get into where they need to be. We do have security guards that do patrol the shop, use CCTVs, and also patrol the car parks for people that may be hanging about and move them on. We will have to call the police if we have a violent shoplifter. Obviously, we don't want that violent shoplifter getting out into the car park and actually causing other residents harm. As I say, those incidents are normally happen during the day and are isolated incidents where I'll just reiterate, where we do have stores trading 24 hours, we do not have an issue regarding antisocial behaviour or crime and disorder. The people that are coming into our shops between midnight and 6 a.m. are normally the shift workers, the paramedics, the police that want to come and grab a hot coffee, and particularly on the run up to Christmas, as Mr. Taylor said, those shoppers that necessarily don't want to shop during the peak times where our shops are busy. They want the flexibility to shop at a longer period when it's more quiet.
I do understand people wanting to shop a 24-hour basis once COVID is over with or during COVID. Do you not think that it would make them feel more uncomfortable? You are very close to our nightlife, far closer than Tesco's. About the same as Asda, but it is a different walking distance, not as the crow flies as you're looking at it. I do believe that you would probably get more inebriated people in your shop. How are you going to deal with those? At what stage do you say that they have had enough to then be able to buy alcohol or not buy alcohol?
Okay, so our policies and procedures, all colleagues, all managers are trained on ensuring no one is served alcohol. It's an offence under the Licensing Act to serve anybody that is intoxicated. So Morrison's do have training and procedures and do not serve people that are intoxicated.
And the security staff wouldn't be letting them in anyway.
Okay.
So people coming from a night out into Morrison's have had a decent drink will not be served alcohol.
No.
Will not be served alcohol, and as Mr. Taylor said, will not be allowed into the shop. We pride ourselves in being a responsible retailer. We do not want people that are inebriated in our shop causing a havoc or attempting to purchase alcohol, they will be stopped on the door.
Thank you. Just bear with me 1 second. I've just got a bit of an issue with my laptop. That's better. Sorry, thank you for that.
Okay.
So during COVID, are you planning on opening 24 hours a day to be able to serve alcohol?
We're planning on opening. Sorry, the plan is in the run up to Christmas.
Okay, and then continuing after that?
Unlikely. This is again, it's a response to demand. We would like it 365 days a year. Who knows is the answer. If you were to ask me, is it probable that this store will be open 24 hours by the time we have a wet and windy January coming around? I think it would be very, very unlikely.
Thank you. Are you aware that Hartlepool has a high drug and alcohol issue?
I've spoken to the police about it, yes.
And you are aware?
Yes.
With Children's Services, of which I'm chair of, we have a lot of children that are in care due to drug and alcohol issues. Do you not feel that this would add to the issues?
Well, the fact is that we train our staff to the nth degree. We operate Challenge 25. The staff training is refreshed very regularly indeed. There is no evidence currently of any issue of Morrison's serving alcohol to underage people.
Thank you. Bob, do you have any more questions? No. Thank you very much. Now, can I thank you for your time, Richard and Kelly? I really appreciate the answers that you've given there. I now want to pass over to the objectors. Darab, can I bring you in first?
Sure. Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm speaking on behalf of Hartlepool Licensing Association, and it was a bit. I was a bit saddened that Mr. Taylor thought I was speaking on behalf of myself. We have got in region of well over 40 or 50 members, and I'm speaking on behalf of every single one of them. We have tried for many years to control the safety of everyone and trying to get rid of this stigma which exists with Hartlepool, with drink and alcohol. And we are heavily ruled and governed by all the regulations, and sadly, the supermarkets are not. Thank you, Lisa, for asking all the right questions. However, I don't think you got the right answer. I would go through a few things, first of all, about myself. I have been in hospitality since I've been 17-year-old. I'm 64-year-old, self-employed since age of 21. I have run chain of bars, restaurants, and nightclub all over Northeast. I do travel a lot, and I also have got the closest people to me, my daughters and their husbands. They are doctors and surgeons in NHS. So I can see both sides. I can see how NHS is suffering because of alcohol abuse, and I can also see what we are doing in the bar and restaurants. What we have done over the years, we have tried to bring the alcohol use to a lot of regulation, put them in the restaurants, bars, and nightclub where it can be monitored by the authority, by the police, and by everyone. And now we are going back again to the dark stages where we are letting the supermarket provide 24-hour alcohol at a cut down price, that there's no control, nobody checking to see who they are, what they are doing, and the crates of drinks going into the houses. what I would like to say, I actually apologize because I objected on 2 matters, which the 4 objectives of the licensing is prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, public safety, protect of the children. And I think drinking at home excessively, it interferes with all those objectives. That's why we have put them under a roof. That's why we have got CCTV in the bars. That's why we have got door security. That's why we are controlling everything. In the last 10 years, the number of pubs and nightclubs has reduced by 50%. It's a fact. We know that. And I have got records from NHS that on the last 10 years, the number of liver diseases and alcohol-related problem has increased by 61%. This is not due to the bars open. This is not due to the nightclub being open. People who go to the bar and nightclub, they get 2 drinks, 3 drinks. Because of the price, they can't afford it. They go home. Supermarket provide drink at a low cost as a loss leader. When you enter any supermarket, with all the respect, you mentioned Tesco, you mentioned Asda, you mentioned Morrison, they are all the same. The people, the children, the adults, they are targeted with crates of all the drinks and cans and boxes of chocolate. 2 things, temptation for the adult and children. I think the supermarkets, they are looking after their shareholders. Fair enough, they might say they care about community. I would question that. The bars and nightclubs, I did have a nightclub for a few years. I respect Ian Harrison tremendously. He's an honourable man. And I think he would say that I run it perfectly. And I can tell you, the average spending in the nightclub, I was open until 4 o'clock in the morning, is £5. People were spending 1.5 drink because before they go out to the bar and nightclub, they are binge drinking at home. They're coming out, the drink hasn't hit them yet. They don't sound drunk and they come in, they drink water or they get 1 drink. So the supermarket have got a lot to answer. Drinks supposed to be a social thing. It was a social thing that you go with your parents, grandparents to a pub in the countryside, you have a drink and you have a talk and you go home. We have changed that. We have changed it. I have got a friend which sooner or later is going to lose his life because he's drinking, the bars are closed at home, he's getting drink, he can manage to have 10 cans or 12 cans, he's getting 26 stone, he hasn't been out of the house for a long time. It's not the bar and the nightclubs, it's the supermarket again. We are not being honest with people. Morrison, between Morrison and Raby Road, there's a housing estate. On 2011, there used to be a general dealer open in Raby Road. At 2011, the licensing officer, they reduced his 24-hour license to 12 o'clock because of the housing area. They had problem with drink and drugs. And then they have reduced it to 10 o'clock. Councillor Richardson, he would remember. We reduced it to safeguard those children, those people who have got problem. The same housing area, it's next to the Morrison. That housing area is between this place and that place. We cannot have 2 sets of rules. I think the honourable gentleman, he's saying that the police hasn't objected. Yes, the police hasn't objected, and I'll tell you why. Possibly the council wouldn't object. The reason is because they do not want to involve a big machinery who has got endless money to tackle the legal institution of the council. That is why the police do not have the fund to do it. It comes down to us to stand up, say, no, it doesn't happen. We have got a few things to say. The gentleman is talking about Morrison. I am your customer. I actually like Morrison. You do community work, you spend money, but you have spoiled it. You spoiled it. Such an insensitive time you put for a license. We are on COVID-19. All the bars and nightclubs are closed. You're slapping everybody on the face. You're saying if you're a giant company, you can stand and do what you want. This is not acceptable. You're talking about security. You had problem at Morrison, not just here, a lot of places during the lockdown, and you had to bring extra security. You have got security. Your security only deals with inside. You have got a few beggars outside your department store, which they make the customers very uncomfortable, and you cannot manage your car park. How can you manage when you're going to sell drinks? Please visit your department store. I go in it, and I'm 6'1". I'm very fit. I feel uncomfortable when I see people gathering around your Morrison. So how would other people feel when you're going to have your door open and supplying drink and food all the time? We in Hartlepool, at the moment, I do work with police. I work with Ian Harrison to do with the licensing association. We are trying to control and manage the takeaways, the bars, to have some safety matters in place. And you are going to open your door and you say you're going to manage it. Every time I go in there, you have got problem with the shoplifters. You can't manage the shoplifters who run in, run out. How can you manage it with selling drinks? This is not, you are not interested on selling one bottle of wine. You are interested on selling crates of drinks. And you're talking about Tesco and Asda, they have got the license. And you're saying, well, you might not open, you want that flexibility. With all the respect, I would say to the councillors, once you give a license, you have given a license. You cannot say, well, we give a license, but they might not open. You either want a license or you don't. I can't say, I'm sure I can't say, well, please give me a license 24 hours for my restaurant. I might not open, but I might fancy one day. We can't pick and choose. Once the license is given to you, basically you have got that license to operate as you wish. You're talking about you want to open near Christmas. We have got, if you want to open near Christmas, you can ask for temporary event and you can have 21 days open on temporary event. Why do you not do that? You have got a lot of the 24-hour petrol station. They provide sandwiches, they provide hot coffee, they provide everything. I cannot believe that you're going for a license because you want to sell a coffee. A coffee costs £2. Yeah, a customer buys £2. Are you really going to run all those lighting, everything for £2? You don't. If I want a coffee, if I want a sandwich, if I want anything, I can go and get it on a 24-hour service. I don't think, with all the respect, I think you might have been a bit, you've got to be very clear to everybody. When you're talking about door security, I have seen your door security. I have seen how they are managing the car park. You're talking about training. Every single bar, every single restaurant, they go through rigorous training and they have got to have CCTV. It's compulsory. They are also part of a pop watch group. You're not providing anything which already doesn't exist. The last thing I would say, I'm begging the councillors, and I would finish. I used to let a lot of houses. And one of the houses that I used to let, it was actually near Morrison. I stopped letting houses, and I'll tell you why. And every time I talk about it, it brings tears to my eyes, because the resident of that house had told me they had problem with the boiler. I attended at 8 o'clock in the morning to the house. I knocked many times. Eventually, I was given access. The lady woke up. She had a few children. I went in with the plumber to look at the boiler, to sort out the central heating. And she went into the sitting room. She slapped her kid, 5-6-year-old son, who possibly was going to Linfield, and my wife was teaching that kid. And the kid started. Sure, I am making the point. I am making the point. The point was that the kid got smacked because had the leftover of the food from the night she had been out. And I looked, when I went in the kitchen, she had every cans from the supermarket, but the kid was crying because the kid didn't have any food on the table. If we are going to give license to places like supermarket, if we are going to bend over to everyone like the supermarket, we are going to let those children of the future, they are going to run the future of this country. We are going to let them down. And I hope we can look in their eyes and saying it was us who's done that. Thank you.
Thank you, Darab. Any members got questions for Darab? No? Can I pass over to Julia?
Hello, yes, thank you. I want to thank Mr. Rezai for his detailed report and representation. I'll be quite short. I'd like to address, first of all, what Mr. Taylor said about the CCTV. His CCTV does not extend into the streets beyond the supermarket, and nor do his staff follow the buyers as they leave this once they've left the store. And of course, this is where the problems arise. In my own family, addiction to alcohol is a problem. And as a society, I think that we should tackle all forms of addiction by making alcohol so obviously available. We condone this spiral into addiction, and we should make some move to counteract this. It would be my wish to limit access to alcohol across the board, and would like to take away licenses already granted. Therefore, if I could, I would revoke these licenses, and I submit that the committee should start now and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Any members got questions for Julia? No? Any of the interested parties wish to briefly sum up their statements?
I'd like to sum up, Councillor, if I may, but I'd like to go last, if that's okay. That's the usual process.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I'm just giving Darab and Julia the opportunity if they wanted to quickly sum up. No? I'll pass over to you then, Richard. Oh, Darab, sorry.
Right.
A brief sum up though, Darab, thank you.
All I would say, sadly, with the supermarket, we are putting every objective out of window. And if we give the supermarket 24 hours, especially this has been given quite a bit of publicity, it opens the door to the other operators that the police and Ian, their hands would be tied and they have to give them license. That is also the danger. Thank you.
Thank you, Darab. Mr. Taylor, would you like to sum up?
Thank you very much. I'd just like to address you on the law, because what we've got here, we've moved away from any potential issues of Morrison's selling alcohol between midnight and 6 to a general complaint about supermarkets in general. So I want to get back, if I may, to the Home Office guidance, your policy and the law to start with, and then we'll just apply the law to what we've heard this morning. So I started by referring to the Home Office guidance. Paragraph 10.15, for your legal advisor, supermarkets should normally be free to sell alcohol for consumption off the premises at any time the shop is open for shopping, unless there are good reasons based on the licensing objectives for restricting those hours. Well, with park there, good reasons. Your policy is what it is, and you will determine whether or not it is a residential area or not. But your policy is subject to an overriding principle that each application must be considered on its own merits. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do here. So, applying the law and the case law, what do we do? Well, again, the case law says you must determine this application on the basis of real evidence, not supposition, not guesswork, not concerns, but real evidence. And again, the Home Office, that was the case of Thwaites, paragraph 63, Her Honour Judge Black said that. This was then enshrined into the guidance, paragraph 9.43, the authority's determination should be evidence-based. Okay, so what we're going to look at now, members of the committee, is the evidence that we've heard this morning, both for and against, but real evidence. And what we're looking at is there any evidence to suggest that the sale of alcohol between midnight and 6 will cause any difficulties as far as the licensing objectives are concerned? So, the evidence in favour. Number 1, there is the position of the responsible authorities. There are no objections from the police. The experts in issues of antisocial behaviour, crime and disorder do not object. The experts in respect of noise and light pollution do not object. Child safeguarding do not object. Safety services do not object. Now, you say, oh, fine, hang on, but the local residents, aren't they in the best position? Well, again, we have case law about this. You need to attach significant weight to the fact that they do not object. We've heard already, I've told you the paragraphs already about those being the experts. And again, the Thwaites case says the fact that the police did not object should have weighed heavily with the committee. And the fact that it didn't led that to be overturned by the appeal courts. So, the position of the responsible authorities is 1. Number 2, Morrison's track record, both nationally and locally. Have we heard this morning any evidence whatsoever emanating from alcohol sales at this store? And the answer is no. What we've heard is a long and impassioned plea about supermarkets in general. And we've heard from Mrs. Taylor that she'd like to revoke all the licenses. Well, of course, if there are any problems to the licensing objectives caused by alcohol sales, anybody can apply to review a license. The fact here is that there is no evidence whatsoever in front of your committee today to say that the sale of alcohol is currently a problem, and from which you could extrapolate the fact that the sale of alcohol would be a problem if we were afforded the flexibility that we were asking for. We are doing more as far as security is concerned. And again, let's just pause with what Mrs. Taylor said. Mrs. Taylor said, but they don't patrol the streets. They can't go beyond the car park. Well, that's absolutely right. But again, the Home Office is very, very clear about this. And what it says, it's paragraph 2.21 of the guidance, the section 182 guidance. It says, beyond the immediate area of the premises, these are matters of personal responsibility of individuals under the law. We can control our store. We can control the area outside our store. We cannot affect what happens in houses away from the store. And if somebody's got Morrison's cans on their table and assaults a child, that is awful. But it's absolutely nothing to do with alcohol sales from Morrison's. So issues away from the store are nothing to do with us. So there you go. We've got the police not objecting, the experts not objecting, no evidence whatsoever of any problems emanating from alcohol sales at the moment. What is the evidence against? Well, again, we've heard Mr. Rezai, and I respect him totally, and I apologise to him if I suggested that he was objecting off his own right. I understand the Hartlepool Licensees Association. I've read about it online, and it does a very, very good job. But it's not Mr. Rezai's job to object on behalf of the NHS. And even if it was, that's not an issue of the licensing objectives under this Act. What we have is an objection from the Hartlepool Licensees Association, which is generic, which is anti-supermarket, and that's absolutely fine. That's a matter of opinion. But it's nothing to do with any problems emanating from this store. What we have from local residents, a single household. Now, if this was an area, if this was a store surrounded by chimney pots and there was a problem, would you expect there to be more than a single resident household objecting? So, members of the committee, it's a matter of balance, isn't it? On the one side, you've got the evidence in favour, and on the other side, you've got supposition and guesswork, and that's not evidence at all, and the case law is very clear about that. The guidance is very clear about that. So what I'd ask you to do is to deal with the application on its own merits. I've dealt with the merits. I've dealt with the evidence. Allow Morrisons the flexibility that is enjoyed by its competitors. And of course, as I've already said, if there's any issue whatsoever, then review is open to anybody at all. But what I'm telling you, there's no problem at this store at the moment. There's been no problem with any other of the 600 Morrisons licensed in the last 16 years. Those concerns just won't come to pass. So in all of the circumstances, members of the committee, I'd ask you to apply the law and grant the application on its own merits. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Do any of the members want any points clarified? No? All good. Members will now go into closed session to reach our decision. We'll be accompanied by the Council's legal representative and Democratic Service officers who will assist us and advise us during this process. Our decision will be released later today and Mr. Harrison will notify you by email. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.